Morning, seniors and friends. A very happy new year to everyone. I welcome you all to this first episode of Prerna of this year and the 14th episode of Prerna. And Prerna, as we know, it is an outreach program of the Indian Menopause Society. The innovative idea to start Prerna was from our president, Dr. Pushpa Sethi, and our Secretary General, Dr. Aarti Gupta, and the two conveners of Prerna, Dr. Neerja Chawla and Dr. Shobha Gudi, have taken it forward throughout 2023 with immense zeal and dedication. And the first segment is a motivational talk. And we have heard some very inspiring talks throughout the year, and which have also been meticulously uploaded by Dr. Neerja Chawla on the Digital Education Committee channel of YouTube. And they can be accessed by anyone, and they will keep inspiring us for many more years. And the second half of Prerna is dedicated to physical fitness, diet, exercise, etc. I take this opportunity to welcome our two eminent speakers for today, Mr. Vivek Atray and Dr. Sarvdeep Singh Dhatt, to the webinar. And I also look forward to listening to them. I would now like to request Dr. Neerja Chawla, who was also the founding chair of the Digital Education Committee of IMS and the founder president of the Chandigarh Region Menopause Society. I request you, ma'am, to invite and introduce our first speaker. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Asna. Yes, indeed. Prerna has become very, very popular. And since it is uploaded on YouTube, sometimes it's a disadvantage because people tend to watch that and they don't want to get up on Sunday mornings. But I want to tell people that if you're here on the live session, you have the opportunity to talk directly to our eminent speakers and ask your queries. So without further ado, I must go ahead with this program and invite Mr. Vivek Atray, a lovely, lovely, lovely person. A person very lovely, but just look, he is a former IAS and he was doing so well after having done electronics engineering from NIT Kurukshetra, and he also has a diploma in French. He was the DC of Panchkula and former director of IT and tourism, the man behind the Chandigarh IT Park. So a young person doing so well from the civil services in the prime of his career, he just resigned and went on to become a motivational speaker. He has 8 TEDx talks, a lot of Josh talks, over 6 million views, and he is a motivational speaker for a lot of places, industry, academia, government, and he's an author. His books, Move On Bunny, Dubeji Bounces Back, It's a Wonderful Life, so, and Finding Success Within. So he's not a one-time success. He has had 4 books so far, and he writes a fortnightly column for Hindustan Times called Random Forays. He's also founder of the SUVICHAR think tank, the Playwrite Foundation, and the Chandigarh Literary Society, which has amazing programs in Chandigarh. And he's a visiting professor and chair of the Yogananda Center of Theology at Shulini University, as well as other things. But he's also a cricketer, and he organizes the annual All India JP Atray cricket tournament. So we assigned him this task. We asked him this question: how do you find the courage to make decisions and change your career and your life? So on to Vivek Atray. Welcome, Vivek.
Thank you, Dr. Neerja. Thank you so much, ma'am, for a warm welcome and invitation. And Dr. Chawla is also here. It is nice to see him as well. It's nice to see all the members and eminent guests and speakers. Dr. Sarvdeep, my co-speaker. And already I feel some very warm vibes in this session, although it's difficult to feel them online, but we can make do with that feeling. In fact, this webinar, my participation is the result of, I think it was the result of a chance meeting after many years with Dr. Neerja Chawla. but maybe she had it in mind earlier as well. And here I am. I am a motivational speaker after resigning from the IAS, but I was also a motivational speaker when I was in service. So it became a little more difficult for me to keep speaking when I was in service. So that was the primary reason I resigned. I became very fascinated with this opportunity of inspiring others as far as possible, especially the youth. And some of us are senior in life now, but we still need a lot of inspiration from each other. So I will seek inspiration from you as I go along in my talk. And I'm sure that at the end, we'll have an interaction and we'll keep in touch later. This is the era of being connected, and LinkedIn or Instagram, wherever we are, we should remain connected, or on telephone or physically meeting wherever possible, because human interaction is very important. And even in the era of AI, another topic I often speak on is the human element has to be maintained. But today's topic is very interesting, having the courage to change your career or take the decision that you have to take or should take, or which comes from the heart. One thing I would like to say right in the beginning is that leading a life of compulsion, or zabardasti ki zindagi, as they might say, is something which is difficult, which is painful at times. Let me give an example of many women over the centuries in India, perhaps in other countries as well. They have been often, I won't use the word oppressed here, though that is also true, but they have been suppressed. Their aims, their ideals, their goals, their passions have not really been allowed to flower. Now, I started speaking on a topic like this when I watched a film recently, not so recently, a few years ago. And I was not very keen to watch it because the title was very uncomfortable sounding for me, and it was called Sand Ki Aankh. And I was like, ye kya hai? I told my daughter, I'm not watching such film. What is Sand Ki Aankh? She says, Papa, it means bullseye. I said, yeah, that's right. It translates into bullseye. And there were these two ladies in that film portraying real life stories, where these two women used to, a very slightly technical or Shashi Tharu type of word, they used to surreptitiously vanish, and they would go into the some area where they would practice their shooting skills. And these ladies were from traditional families in their 60s, perhaps at that time. And they became shooting champions, and nobody in the family knew, especially the patriarch did not know. They had the courage, and later when they were found out, they were already so successful that there was no option for anyone but to fall in line with their wishes. But most of us, when we transform ourselves into something that we wish to do from the heart and not zabardasti or by compulsion, we find it difficult to do so because we don't perhaps have the fearlessness. I'm not going to use the word courage that much, but fearlessness. Now, nobody can be totally fearless. Very few people are. Nobody is actually. Every human being has some fear. But we can, if not be fearless, we can have less fear. I used to say in government when we were in IT that if we can't make the government paperless, we can at least have less paper. So let's not talk about fearlessness. At least we can have less fear. Although even in the scriptures, one of the main qualities is fearlessness. And fearlessness comes from faith. And faith comes from faith in oneself and faith in the Almighty. But then we are human and we are tested. So it is very difficult to change course from something that we are doing for many decades or many years to something that is close to our heart and we want to do, but we are scared, worried about doing it. I don't want to talk about myself much, but I'll just bring in a couple of lines. So I resigned from the IAS 6 years ago, and I had to be fearless because the IAS is not something you resign from. You're in a comfort zone. I had 11 years to go, and I could have stayed there for another 11, 12 years, and rather 15 years maybe. You never know, you get more extensions these days. And you get a salary, you're comfortable, and you don't have to do anything else apart from your work in the government or wherever you are. I started feeling very strongly that I can contribute more to society by speaking from my experience, speaking from the heart, becoming an orator, especially for the youth, which is overthinking. Overthinking is the bane of the modern era. And people are on Instagram, on Facebook, on whatever, and digital media, and Netflix, and all these digital devices and content, they make us overthink. We start comparing ourselves with others too much, children especially, when they find someone who's more successful, on the social media, and more likes, more appreciation, more views, then they feel low because they're not in the same league that way. And COVID exaggerated this situation. It became more difficult, and people started going into their own cocoon. So in this era, overthinking took over the minds of most people, and young people especially. So I decided that I, as someone who can speak, can write motivationally, I should do more for society, even more than the IAS. So that is the reason, basically, why I resigned. And I travel now to speak. I go all across India, and wherever I'm in Ahmedabad now to speak yesterday. And I am totally passionate about what I do. So that fearlessness to change career took a while to come because of that comfort zone. And the family also had to be convinced. And they were very positive. My wife, Nina, was very positive about it. But it took time. And one of my uncles, on the lighter side, we should have some lighter moments also in the new year. One of my chachajis, he calls me, he says, Vivek, kya kar rahe ho? Kyun kar rahe ho ye? He says, I think there may be people who don't understand Hindi on the call, so I'll stick to English. I'm not sure, but I'll just stick to English. He says, why are you resigning? He says, मेरे कामों का क्या होगा? What will happen to my work? My arms license renewal, my driving license, my this, that. I said, Chachaji, I'm not going to stay in the government for your little things. I would stay for the larger cause. But don't worry, I will help you get your things done even after I resign. So then he was quite assuaged, and he was feeling better. And today he actually commends me for my decision 6 years later. And most people who said it is a bold decision, which meant it is a stupid decision at that time, but they didn't say it, they basically commend me also. So with these 6 million views are now gone to 7 million views, and having come on some celebrity podcasts like Ranveer Alabadia, which many of your children, grandchildren, sorry, not grandchildren, perhaps they're still in toddlers, but they also follow Ranveer Alabadia and Raj Shamani and others. So I have now gained that status and that stature among the youth, especially, that they listen to me more. So my aim and objective has been achieved in that sense, though it may not have been. When I resigned to change my career, I took a risk. I took the plunge. I hurtled headlong, as they say, or you dive deep into the deep end. But somehow some advisory roles with Shulini University, with Swiggy also I'm advising now. And I also do some corporate sessions, which keep me financially comfortable, earning more than the IAS. Excuse me. Earning a little more than the IAS salary. And I do 80% of my work, which is charitable. That means I travel to speak on my own. I speak for children, I speak for students, and the rest 20% keeps the revenue coming. So that's how I work. So when I travel to somewhere like Bombay or Bangalore, my travel is taken care of by the organization. I speak on leadership or emotional intelligence or changing career or interpersonal relations or public speaking skills or whatever. So I feel that I'm justified in my decision to have changed my career. But everybody need not change their career so drastically. I would suggest that most of us, most of you, can add a passion, a creative pursuit, while continuing with your main part of your career, which is, let's say you're a doctor, you are in a profession, you are in a specialized area. You did not focus on anything else. Very few of us can find that time let's say playing the guitar, let's say writing, let's say photography, let us say public speaking, let us say fine art, let us say consulting in some field which is totally different, astrology. Some people do various different things. Some of these passions can be continued along with your primary career and add that zing and zest and that X factor to your career while you're still in the service, in the career, in the profession which you chose. Maybe you can follow the 80-20 rule, which I will paraphrase, because 80-20 rule in MBA they teach is Pareto's principle. Though I haven't done MBA, but somehow I know this. Pareto's principle is basically do those 20% things which make 80% of the impact on priority. And then do those 80% things which only make 20% of the impact. And you will know what they are. But if we slightly change the game of Pareto's principle, I would say spend 80% of your time on your core area of work, but 20% of your time on what really makes your heart sing, or maybe even 40% of your time going forward on what really ignites your passions in a way for life itself. So you wake up in the morning with that zest and that energy, that josh, that motivation, that inspiration, that today, apart from my work, which I love, I will also attend a salsa class or, a chef's salsa sauce class, whatever it is. So the thing is, I have to find my zest. And if I'm dull, bored in my career, I am no longer feeling that energy in my career that I had in the first few years, hopefully, then I need to do something. So you cannot indoctrinate yourself to suddenly become totally different. You will find that creative spirit within you. And sometimes we don't know what it is, but by and by we find it. I would say when you want to get into a new field like that, even as a passion, apart from your career, you should take your time. There is no need to do something which someone else is doing. The neighbor has done this, so I also do it. Those days are gone. I was told by my grandfather or maybe by my father that some people at that time, they used to sign up for the army just because the friend was signing up for the army and he spent 30 years in the army because his friend spent 30 years in the army, but his heart was not there in it. So we cannot do something because it is a trend or a fad or somebody else is doing it. In the second phase of life, especially in the second half of life, we have to love what we do. And Einstein said, when you love your work, then you will not have to work a single day. But many of us found that career which we love in the beginning. Yet we need a change. So I would say at least bring in the newness into your career that makes you wake up with zest in the morning and do your work with zest the whole day, knowing that at the end of the day, you have that discussion circle, or on Sunday, you're going to go for that golf or tennis or cricket or whatever you do. And that will really help you to master your negativities and become a better, positive, buoyant kind of person. Now, the drastic shift in career is also possible if you have a second option. That means now I, being a writer and speaker, it's much easier. All of us in this call have the capacity to write a book each. Let me tell you, I often promote the fact that we should be writing more creatively, or our own stories, whatever they are, or even our own technical field, and to be speakers. So I chose the very easy path of being a writer and a speaker, which everybody can do to some extent, more or less. But there are technical areas. Some people are very deep into art. And I know of a friend who paints so beautifully, and he really comes up as a very different person in that field than he is in the corporate world. So find that passion and spend more time on it. Gradually increase that involvement with that time. And then you will find that you are more zestful, more in love with life itself, a better person to be with for others. And you will find that you are most of the time cheerful. I often talk quickly. I'll mention this because I think I'm coming to the end and I'll have an interaction hopefully. I often talk about the 7 C's, and these are for the young students, but I will share them here also, and they will give a sense of what I've been talking about till now. The first C I talk about is courage, and that is what we are talking about here, which is fearlessness. The second is calmness. Paramahansa Yogananda, the author of the autobiography of a yogi, whom I follow, his teachings I follow, he said, be calmly active and actively calm. Now, that's a brilliant way to live. So, calmness. The third is creative thinking. The third C is creativity, which we talked about. Find that creative spirit. The fourth, and it could be number one, is character. Even today, character. For young people, especially in this era, it's very important to possess those values. So, character. Then the fifth is cheerfulness. And we're talking about cheerfulness. That cheerfulness which makes us more healthy, more happy, more likable. Not that we want to be likable necessarily, but we can be tough and likable at the same time. Then compassion. C for compassion, which is basically not only self-centeredness, but thinking of others and empathizing, spending more time for society, for others, which gives us that heart's fulfillment in a different way. Then contentment, which is basically gratefulness for what we have and not being ungrateful for what we don't. And then that contentment, which leads to that inner peace. And it is very difficult to attain all your goals. But that contentment, that gratefulness, doesn't mean that we can't aspire for more and better. We can. But we can be at least content and thankful and santusht with what we have instead of complaining all the time. So very quickly to close, I would say that someone like Albert Einstein, Dalai Lama, Usain Bolt, Sam Manekshaw, Mother Teresa, Lata Mangeshkar, P.V. Sindhu, someone also needs to inspire us. At whatever stage of life we are, we cannot be so cynical, which has become a very sad trend in society today. That cynicism has to be reduced in order to live a courageous and energetic life ahead. However brilliant we may be, we cannot spend that time in negativity. So be inspired by somebody who's maybe not living anymore, is a role model for you, or maybe you found a new inspiration. I saw this film Sam Bahadur recently. I knew Sam Manekshaw's stories, and I knew a few people who told me personal stories about meeting him. But I am re-inspired by him, and I feel that his life is worth writing about. I'm planning to write a book on some of his stories. I find that zest through that inspiration. So I think keep finding that inspiration in new things and things to do. I am quite a disciplined speaker, being a TEDx speaker. I stick to the time. I will not go overboard. I think I started at 9:05 or 9:07, but I don't want to take more time than I have. Thank you, Dr. Shobha, for mentioning the 7 C's. I can see. She's saying, what are the two others? Well, you can see the recording later and find out the two others, because I don't know which ones you missed, right, ma'am? Will I close now with a quote? And the quote is that we also have to meditate, which is a great, important pursuit, which all of us should follow, especially in senior in life. And the quote is that everything can wait, but your search for God cannot wait. And the last one is a share, which I'll close with, which came on WhatsApp, and I don't know who's the author of this. So we'll credit it to Mark Zuckerberg, who's the owner of WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram, though he doesn't understand this because it's a Urdu share. And the share is, फितूर होता है हर दौर में जुदा जुदा, फितूर होता है हर दौर में जुदा जुदा, पहले खिलौने, फिर इश्क, फिर पैसा, फिर खुदा खुदा. Which means basically, yes, you can clap for Zuckerberg, who doesn't understand the share, joking. But the point is, we all go through life in this particular process. It's a linear equation: toys, then crushes, then career, and then God ki bari aaye na aaye, that's up to his luck or our luck. So let's bring in God earlier in life. And when we meet physically or in person and we have a session some other day, some other time, then hopefully we'll talk more in detail about other things. Thank you very much for calling me, ma'am, Nirja ma'am, and everyone who's present, very cheerful faces. And I see Dr. Sardeep has switched on his camera, so over to him. Over to ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivek. That was really awesome. Sorry for this background noise. I'm in a public space, but I wish we could have heard you longer and longer and longer.
Absolutely.
But
Even I
wishes,
feel.
yeah, wishes are horses. They will run. So when you talked about being inspired by somebody, I wanted to share this movie, The Queen's Gambit. So this is on chess. It's a beautiful movie, and there are so many movies on Netflix and otherwise which one can follow. And you mentioned about the seven C's. I thought they were beautiful: courage, calmness, creative thinking, character, cheerfulness, compassion, and contentment. I think each one of them is very beautiful. You also said find your passion and follow your passion, follow your heart. Now, do as much for your primary career, only as much that you have time to spend 20% of your time on your passion, and then you can increase it to 40 or whatever. Now, the question that arises here is if you don't know what your passion is,
Oh, you're
Vivek?
asking me the question. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I think my passion is basically inspiring the youth. Today, it is the youth of India really inspires me also, and
If
I
we
feel
don't
that they.
know,
No,
yeah.
no.
If we
Neeraja's
don't,
question is if a person is not aware correctly of what the passion, what.
Yeah, it happens.
yeah.
I mentioned that it's very difficult to know at times what your passion is. If you have a love for life itself, then I would suggest you start with an empathetic kind of passion, which is to
Hmm.
help others.
Hmm.
Everyone can help others. If you find in the poor, in the elderly, in the young who are not able to study, you find that joy, then that becomes your passion. So if you have no other passion that you can discern, then I would say that the social sector,
Correct.
helping society, can be a passion.
Yeah. Neerja, am
Because
I
if you
allowed a
have,
minute? Yeah.
yes,
You finish. You finish. Then you were saying.
because if you have to listen to your heart
Hmm.
and find your passion, you might find nothing there. And you are like a round thing in a square. You're not fitting wherever you are, like my daughter. And many people that I know, after doing electronics engineering, she worked for 3 years.
Correct. Hmm.
And then she said, I can't do this chip and nanotechnology all my life. So she changed her career. I think if your whatever you're doing is not inspiring you, then definitely you have to look. And what I found was that when I say, na, what do I want to do now that I'm getting older? So one of the ways to do that is meditate. So if you meditate and go into silence, what your deepest desires are and what your deepest capabilities are, you will see them and then you can follow them. This is how I felt because I used to keep thinking, I don't know what I'm good at. What is my passion? So, yes, Shobha.
Yeah. So I just needed a minute. I wanted to compliment him for his clarity of thought. And I think whatever we say to Mr. Atray, it will be very superfluous because he must be already, receiving these kind of
No, I'm
accolades.
grateful. I'm grateful
So
to you, man. I'm really grateful.
I just wanted to reiterate what you said in the end with the share, and I wanted to re-emphasize that it's very, very apt because Sanatan Dharma also has the Balyavastha, the Grihastha period, and then the Sannyasa. So it actually is a very universal kind of thought process, which I think even people in the West, so Einstein also may relate to that.